everybody. This is Mike with the One Stop Co-op Shop, and my little Forgotten Age Arkham Horror review the other week was really well received, so I have decided to jump in the deep end and try to cover every single campaign and cycle for the game. And I was a bit unsure which way to go next, whether I would go back to Dunwich Legacy, the first full cycle, or do something with Night of the Zealot, the core campaign, and I am going to do Night of the Zealot, but this should be a much quicker video because there's not as much to talk about here. And again, I'll avoid spoiling anything major, although, unless you haven't played the game at all, I'm sure you've already gone through this cycle. And if you like the content on the One Stop Co-op Shop, consider supporting us through Patreon. You get early access to our videos and exclusive videos you can't see anywhere else. You can also check out our separate streaming channel for even more content, listen to our weekly podcast, or join the conversation on our Discord. So like last time, we're going to start out looking at the 5 investigators that come in the base box of Arkham Horror. And overall, I think this is a super powerful group. I still use many of these. First, for Seekers, you have Daisy Walker. She is great. I love her. 5 intelligence for investigation is still just bonkers. And her free action every turn for tomes in the base game can give you healing and card draw. Then you can get into things like Encyclopedia and just really blow things out of the water. Now, her tote bag isn't really that impressive. I rarely use it. The Necronomicon is annoying, but not like game-breaking. So yeah, she's just super, super solid. Tough to win by herself because she can't evade or fight worth anything, but she's great otherwise. And then Daisy's best friend. I've played many campaigns with the two of them. Roland Banks. He's the Guardian for this set. A great set of stats. You know, his intelligence at 3 means he can clue gather pretty well. Great fighting, too, and he still has enough willpower not to get destroyed by every effect that comes his way. Having his agility, his evasion be his dump stat is not too big of a deal when he's usually shooting things. And his ability to get clues when he defeats monsters, which is what he wants to be doing anyway, is just great. Like, really, really useful, especially in this core Night of the Zealot campaign. It comes in great use. His weakness cover-up can be a little bit annoying, although I've often just let the mental trauma go if it's late in a campaign. And his gun is nice and pretty powerful. Might not be better than other weapons he gets, again, late campaign in his deck, but it works well. It does the job. Certainly not a burner card. Next, for Mystics, we have Agnes Baker, and again, I adore her. 5 willpower? What the heck are you doing, Arkham? And her power is just so consistently useful. If she takes a horror, she does a damage to somebody. Yikes. It just lets her, like, mow through enemies sometimes, especially when they're weaker. And her weakness, Dark Memory, it can be annoying, but honestly, it's kind of like a tool for you to use, because if you keep it in your hand, it automatically causes you 2 horror, which can fire off your ability. Yeah, there you go. It's almost helpful sometimes. As for her heirloom, I rarely play it, because there are other good things to put in that little artifact slot, but it's definitely solid. Rounding things out, Wendy Adams, the Survivor, I don't play her as often. She's still got really good stats, like, you know, if you don't want to fight in something like the Forgotten Age, this is great. And for people who hate the Chaos Bag, her core ability is Luck Mitigation, so that's great. Honestly, she becomes most interesting when you get out her amulet and she can start digging through and playing events from her discard pile, but her weakness goes against that by trashing everything in your discard pile. And I don't know, if the amulet doesn't come up quickly, it can be annoying. So Wendy's fine. She's definitely not like one I'm super excited by. And similar story with Skids. His stats are pretty good, although I always hate having low willpower because so many things can knock you for it. His ability to spend resources to get actions can be awesome, especially now that the card pool is bigger and there's so many ways to get a bunch of money. His weakness, Hospital Debts, it takes a little while to get rid of, but it's not too difficult to do so, although it is going to stop him from getting as many free actions. And On the Lam can be great, especially to like finish out a scenario. So yeah, he's fine. Again, kind of like Wendy, not exciting. He does the job, but I certainly don't throw him into games as much as I do Roland, Daisy, and Agnes. Now, getting to the campaign itself, Night of the Zealot, this is a 3-scenario campaign that, again, comes in the core box. And the first section of these videos is new campaign mechanics. This is the first one, so it's hard to call anything new. But what I'll say quickly is, since this is the campaign that kind of set the rules for the other ones, they did do some cool things. There's some nice story branching. There are tough choices that have implications for the future scenarios. So if you do things in Scenario 1, it's going to affect Scenario 2. If you do or don't do things in Scenario 2, it's going to affect Scenario 3. They're certainly not unique. All the other campaigns do that too, but Night of the Zealot did it well, especially for only 3 scenarios. There is a nice amount of like branching and choices in there. So yeah, not much to say here, but it works. It's good. As for the story, it goes into a pretty stereotypical place by the end, and again, this is only 3 scenarios, so there isn't a lot of space for things to happen. It does, like I mentioned for the Forgotten Age, go into some gray areas. Not everyone who is good is really good, or who's bad is really bad. It has a few different endings that are fun and how they change things up. And I want to give a special mention to the writing and kind of theme building in the very first scenario, because man, it is such a creepy way to start things out. And speaking of the scenarios, let's go through them again briefly. First, we have the Gathering. This one is cool because it works really well as a tutorial, keeps things very simple in the first few turns until things widen out a bit. Now, it is very repetitive on future plays, so it's not going to excite anybody to go through it again. But there are some interesting choices to be made there. If you get the Return to the Night of the Zealot, it does change things up in a nice way. But it's sort of like a tutorial scenario, and it does the job. It's still pretty fun to play even after the fact. And this is how I usually introduce people to the game when I play it with them. It works well. Next, we have the Midnight Mass, and this is a really cool scenario. It is very much a race against time, and you can basically quit whenever you want. But the more you do, the more you accomplish, the easier the third scenario will be, so that's a pretty interesting thing, and really goes into one of my favorite things about Arkham Horror, the card game, which is the non-binary win state. You know, like, usually there's not just a win-lose on-off switch, but you have gradations and like levels and degrees of success. And the Midnight Mass, compared to the Gathering, has much more variety in how it plays out, where like the core characters you're trying to deal with will pop up and how the encounter cards affect you. So really cool stuff there. And then finally, the Devour Below. Honestly, I've always found this scenario a bit of a disappointment. It's fine, but if you did really well in scenario 2, it tends to be like so easy that it almost goes away in the blink of an eye. And if you did really badly in scenario 2, it's almost impossible unless you have the right build. So it's kind of can be frustrating and feel like a little swingy either way. Now, the ending and the choices you have like with the ending are kind of cool. But yeah, this has never been my favorite scenario, and I think it's kind of the weakest of the three in this starting campaign. All right, so there you go. Like I said, that would be a really quick one. In another, 2 or 3 weeks, give me some time to replay some of the scenarios. I'm going to try to do the Dunwich Legacy, and we'll go from there into Carcosa and Circle Undone and whatever else is up there. Thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know if you're continuing to enjoy the series in the comments. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.